Welcome back to another episode of the Behavioral Economics and Marketing Podcast series. This is Sandra Thomas-Comenole. In this episode, we will be talking about applying the framing effect to delegation. So jumping in, what is framing effect? In behavioral economics, framing effect refers to the principle that information is not static, but fluid based on how, when, and where it is communicated. In other words, people's decisions tend to be affected by the way in which the choices are framed through words, body language, tone, presentation, and placement. For example, the trolley problem. The trolley problem is a classic thought experiment in ethics modeling. It presents an ethical dilemma about a fictional scenario in which an onlooker has the choice to save 5 people in danger of being hit by a trolley by diverting the trolley to kill just one person. In that basic scenario, most people would choose to save the 5 people in danger and sacrifice the one person. However, if the question is framed differently, the answer is not always as obvious. For example, what if the one person is a family member? Would you continue to choose to save the 5 people? The term the trolley problem is often used more loosely with regard to any choice that seemingly has a trade-off between what is good and what sacrifices are acceptable, if at all. Another famous example of framing the trolley problem is called the transplant problem. In this fictional scenario, a brilliant transplant surgeon has 5 patients in need of a different organ, each of whom will die without that organ. Unfortunately, there are no organs available to perform any of these 5 transplant operations. However, the doctor discovers a 6th person whose organs are compatible with all 5 of his dying patients. Should he kill the one person to save the other 5? By framing it this way, most people would choose to save the one person. Thus, the way in which choices are framed influences the choices that are made. Marketing application, framing effect in delegation. Much like the trolley problem can be framed in different ways to elicit different responses, good leaders can frame their communication for different audiences to elicit different responses. In this episode, we will discuss how leaders can apply framing effect in delegation. To start with a simple definition of delegation. Delegation is the distribution and assignment of authority to another person to carry out specific activities. In other words, delegation is an administrative process of getting things done by others by giving them responsibility. In this way, we apply framing effect to delegation. Steps to applying framing effect in delegation. Number 1, strategy. I always start with a data-driven strategy. Choose the task, project, or duty that needs to be delegated. Identify the employee to delegate the task to. Choose the employee on a number of factors including skill set, availability of tools and resources, current authority level, desire of employee to accomplish the task, departmental and organizational guidelines. Personally, I think that the employee desiring to accomplish the task or take on the project is one of the most important factors. If an employee truly desires to learn a new skill or take on a task, then they will learn what needs to be learned, ask questions, and try their absolute best. However, an employee that already knows how to do the task, but has been promoted out of that level of duty may feel as if they are being demoted by being asked to do that task. So I think it is important to know your team, know their professional and personal goals, and to help to develop their skills to meet their personal goals through delegation. Number 2, communicate. Fully communicate to the employee the task at hand, the KPIs, and the deadline. Number 3, resources, tools, and authority. Make sure that your employee has all of the tools, resources, and authority to complete the task. Number 4, let go. Do not micromanage, but instead allow your employees to take control of the task. Check in and ask if they need support in any way, but do not take control of the task. Number 5, follow up. Throughout the project, keep your hand on the pulse, especially as you are nearing the deadline. After the project is completed, get your team to give you feedback on the project and give positive feedback to your team. Okay, so now let's apply the framing effect to delegation. Communicate the story. This is often referred to as meaning making. Focus on the story and get your team to buy into that story. Let your team member know the reason for the task, how important it is, how it fits into the bigger picture, why you chose them to take on the task, and what they will get out of completing the task. And of course, how it aligns with their personal goals. So let's deep dive. Number one, reason for the task. Whether delegating a task, project, or long term duty, it is important to start with the why. It is also important that the why isn't, I'm too busy for such a low level task. Instead, the why should bring to light the reason for the task. Here are a couple of examples. This data entry project will allow the sales team to contact their potential clients sooner. Adding a drop down menu will create a better user experience for our customers. Establishing a sustainability committee will help our company to understand our potential for growth in terms of sustainability. These examples gave a why that the employee can understand as well as communicating the importance of the task. So moving on to number two, importance of the task. Understand that your tone and body language, in addition to your words, can frame how important the task is. If this is a very important task, make sure to communicate that to your team member when delegating. Tell them it is important, establish KPIs, a deadline, and if applicable, several touch points in the process. Communicate this in your tone and your body language as well. Number three, how this fits into the bigger picture. Communicate to your team member how this task fits into the bigger picture. For example, in the data entry example from earlier, tell the team member that this data entry project will allow the sales team to contact their potential clients sooner. And when the sales team contacts their potential clients sooner, they will have a higher acquisition rate, which means that their job of entering data is so important for the overall success of the company. The data needs to be entered in fast, accurately, and consistently. Seeing the bigger picture helps the team member to understand the importance of the task and how the team functions as a whole. This may also help them to understand the mechanics of the task better. Number four, why you chose them. It is important to choose the right person for a task for overall efficacy and for long term team growth and rapport. Tell your team member the reasons you chose them for the task. Did they have the right skill set, tools, resources, or authority? Did they have enough on their plate or needed an extra project? Are they passionate about the task? Does it appeal to them for a specific reason? Does it align with their personal or professional goals? Which leads me to number five, rewards and benefits. If the task, duty, or project is not in their purview, it will be important to communicate what they get out of the task. Obviously, for small tasks such as running an errand, it may not make sense for the team member to get something out of the task. But for larger task projects or new duties, it would be helpful to frame the task as meeting their needs. In the case of establishing a sustainability committee, this project or duty may come with more responsibility and a larger workload, but it might not come with a pay raise or a title raise. If the employee's professional goals were to become a sustainability manager, this task would align perfectly. However, often the task at hand has little direct correlation to the professional goals of your team member. In this case, the team member would have the opportunity to lead a team, lead meetings, conduct research, give presentations to the board or C-level, develop public speaking skills, engage with fellow employees, positively impact the environment and community, work with members and organizations in the community. The list goes on, and while all of these rewards are commendable, the one that will be most impactful to the employee will be the one that aligns with their professional goals. Therefore, frame their rewards and benefits around their goals. And I know that I say this a lot, but that is because it is super important. It is important to know your team, develop rapport, know their strengths, their weaknesses, individual drivers and motivations, as well as their professional goals. Knowing your team is an essential part of effective leadership. Wrapping it up, understanding how we as humans make decisions is an important part of marketing and leadership. Behavioral economics is the study of decision making and can give keen insight into employee behavior and help to shape your leadership style. Framing effect is about how employees' decisions tend to be affected by the way in which the choices are framed, through words, body language, tone, presentation, and placement. In this episode, we discussed ways for leaders to apply the framing effect in successful delegation. If you are enjoying this podcast, give me a shout out, like it, share it, follow it, and review it. Also, if you enjoy my style but want to learn more about travel destinations, you are in luck. I am in the process of developing a new travel podcast, the Hub and Spoken Travel Show. If you want to be notified when it comes out, sign up for my newsletter, follow me on social media, or send me an email to let me know. Thank you for listening to another episode of Behavioral Economics and Marketing. This is Sandra Thomas-Comenole.